and hope everybody's having a great day. We wanted to, I just wanted to cover a really brief article. We're trying our technological, we're pressing our technological luck here.
We are.
We're going to try to do back-to-back
Live streams.
live streams. So bear with us. We're trying to figure out all this streaming technology stuff, and wanted to review an article and just talk about something. And then let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. And this article comes from the Gateway Pundit, and they've been covering a lot of really good stuff. If you don't follow Gateway Pundit, and they just won a court case. They were issued press credentials or something like that. I forget the exact specifics, but U.S. household wealth sees second fastest decline in U.S. history in 2022 under Joe Biden. The U.S. household wealth is down 13.5 trillion in 2022, the second fastest decline on record. Only the 08-09 financial crisis was worse than the Biden 2022 economic crisis. I kind of despise the whole paradigm thing that this is Biden's crisis. I mean, this is a global.
Yeah.
This is not just a global contagion. This is a global machination of collapsing the system. Who's the guy that wrote the book and he dedicated to Satan about collapsing the system? But anyway, so we're seeing some parallels here with the mortgage-backed security crisis in 2008. Now we have this secondary crisis in the midst of a recession. Simultaneously, while they are trying to change our entire fiscal infrastructure with central bank digital currency. So we're seeing these different puzzle pieces and these different pieces that are being leveraged. But what's very interesting is while U.S. household wealth is down 13.5 trillion, the top half percenters and the top quarter of a percenters, those like Elon Musk, their wealth expanded exponentially, like by factors of 6 and by 10. Whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's Jeff Bezos, whether it's Bill Gates, all these different mega billionaires and mega wealthy, and just by the way, Elon Musk is not the richest man in the world. That all these different propaganda magazines, like we just saw who was on the cover of Time magazine. Obviously, that's a propaganda piece. I don't know if you can say this on YouTube or not because they like to misconstrue everything you say, but Adolf Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine, and that's a statement of fact. So, and that's how long Time magazine has been a propaganda piece. And he was on there in real time, by the way. He wasn't on there in 1980 or anything. And then so now we have the Ukrainian air quotes president. He's the man of the year at Time magazine. And it's interesting how there's some Azov battalion similarities there. But we see Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He's not. You don't know the guys' names, and you don't know all the different men that are much wealthier than Elon Musk that you don't even know their name, you don't know their address, you don't know, it's kind of a joke when they have this list. It's really just celebrity is what it is, and it's propaganda. Economists and corporate leaders are already warning about a likely recession in 2023. I think we're already in a recession, but anyway. Sadly, it won't stop Democrats from spending more money and sinking the economy. And it won't stop Republicans either, which is interesting because I've been around for a while now, and I haven't seen anything stop Republicans from spending money. As long as it's on the red talking points, it's like really cool to spend money, and it's really cool to have bigger and bigger and bigger government, as long as it's doing good things instead of, bad things. All government in a large part is terrible.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they're terrible at what they do, and they're horrible, and they waste money. And that's why the most important thing about government is to keep it as infinitesimally small as possible. That's when government functions the best, when it's barely recognized that it even exists. American households lost about 6.8 trillion in wealth over the first 3 quarters of 2022 as the stock market shed more than 20% of its value, the Federal Reserve reported Friday in the government's quarterly financial accounts. Nominal net worth fell 4.6 to 443.3 trillion as the market value of assets fell by 6 trillion and liabilities rose by about 900 billion. Households' balance sheets were propped up by a 10% increase in home equity, which is the greatest source of wealth for most American families. But the loss of real wealth from January through September was about twice as large, 13.5 billion in current dollars, after accounting for the rapid inflation experienced this year. Inflation makes both debts and liabilities worth less in terms of purchasing power. Also, inflation is an absolute tax, and it's just one more tax that we pay, y'all. The 8.6% drop in real wealth over 3 quarters is the second fastest decline on record. The data series began in 1959. The only greater drop was following the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. So while we are in a recession, we haven't had a financial crisis, quote unquote, yet. So I think we're seeing the leanings to something that's going to be far greater, and it very well probably will be this catalyst for the central bank digital currency. And this is just a real brief article. And what we wanted to talk about was the food 401k. The reason for about 6 or 7 years ago now that I came up with this idea on, I was in the financial planning field, and when we did relocate, and we got out of the market in 2008, and because of all the different things I saw while being a financial planner and doing portfolio analysis and watching all the stock overlap and mutual fund overlap, watching the chicanery, watching all the manipulation, watching the shenanigans of all the double booking and the off balance sheet, on balance sheet, and the different assets that were outside of their asset classes, and watching these fund managers just do ultra shady stuff that is like probably where Sam Bankman-Fried got all his ideas from. Because the funny thing is like, people, Sam Bankman-Fried, and people lost all this money. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried is a dime a dozen, and these financial charlatans are almost exclusively our entire economic system. And I'll tell you a little anecdotal story. So after I was out, and we got to wrap this up by 7:30.
Yep.
So I got out of the financial planning thing, went into general contracting, and I got asked to price this job on this custom home at the shore on the bay, and it was a young guy, younger than me, in his 30s, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and it was a custom home, terracotta clay, very very nice custom home built by a custom home builder. The custom home builder got divorced. This guy bought the house. Oh, I'm going to put a car stacker in the 3-bay garage, and I'm going to stack 6 cars in here, and then I'm going to bring my Lambo and my Maybach and all this. And I'm like, dude, what? And I'm like, now what in the world does this guy do, right? And so when I came back for another appointment with him, I'm like, yo, man, if you don't mind me asking, like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a bond trader. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're a bond trader, huh? And, he had no idea that I had any kind of financial background or whatever. And I was like, man, bond traders, that's small margins. Like, you must be dealing with volume. And then actually he said, well, have you ever heard of credit default swaps? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you mean that thing that, like, crashed the stock market? Well, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, that's that was that's illegal. Well, it was illegal for about 2 weeks, but it's a $14 trillion market. And after the administration said that they were going to stop it, everybody trading on that $14 trillion market was like, no, you're not. You're not going to stop it. And he's like, so, yeah, we're still doing it.
Huh.
And I'm like, oh, wow, well, supposedly that's why everything is bad with the economy and everything went wrong and people lost all this wealth, and it's wrong and it's bad and it's synthetic and it's derivatives backed by nothing, right? So that's why there's going to be all of this legislation and regulation and blah, 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 right? And they just never turned it off, turned it right back on. They stopped for 2 weeks, and I am sure, I have no way of verifying if today that it's still happening, but I know that back then it was still happening years after it created this cataclysmic financial problem, right? Where who always gets hurt? The average 401k guy, the average IRA guy, the mom and the pop, the just your average investor. They get decimated, destroyed, and annihilated. 98% of all investments fail. That's a large reason why they're grossly manipulated. So all that being said,
Yeah.
got out of the market in '08. I said, I'm never going back into the market. And people ask me all the time, well, what do you invest in? And, there are real assets like gold and silver, and I do recommend that. But
you can't eat gold or silver.
You can't eat gold or silver. And I'm not some new guy coming up with this idea of homesteading or anything like that. I mean, actually, this was the idea of society and the world, this agrarian lifestyle.
Yeah, before zombie viruses.
Yeah. And, way before the zombie virus, way before Zombie Joe, way before the swine flu and the Zika virus,
bird flu,
and the the virus, the one-legged peacock, bulgy-eyed virus, and all that stuff. But so when we relocated, bought our house, and then we started becoming profitable, where we had more than we needed to exist and subsist and all these different things. Like, okay, well, now we have excess. So what are we going to do with these dollars? And I literally said, well, we're going to dollar cost average. We're going to invest 10% a week or a month, or however your income comes in. We're going to invest 10% of that. According however you want to do it. You want to do it by the week, you want to do it by the month, you want to do it by the quarter, you want to do it annually. We're going to invest that into infrastructure, and our infrastructure originally was food. And had never really grown a garden, had never grown any kind of fruit trees, but my fascination with fruit trees is I'm like, but if we plant this fruit tree one time, and we raise it right and do all the things and the stuffs, and it lives, like, it can give us a 25-year, a generational abundance of food. So we started dollar cost averaging into what I affectionately termed as our food 401k. And now, 4 or 5 years later, that has grown, now we can share that, and that is our food forest in a box. And it's a way that we can share this with other people, and they in turn can start growing their own food and growing perennial food, and not just growing perennial food, but food in which you can in turn around and propagate it yourself, and either plant more abundance for yourself, share it with friends, share it with family. And this is non-taxable.
True. It's very true.
This food is non-taxable. This food is inflation proof. That pear that you grow on your pear tree costs is unaffected by the supposed 10% inflation that's supposedly currently going on.
So
right
in
now.
the food forest in the box, you get 3 fig cuttings, 3 blackberry cuttings, 3 Texas peach cuttings, 3 goji berry cuttings, and 3 black mulberry cuttings. And then somebody asked, how long until your fruit trees will start producing for you?
Well, these mature trees, so depending on how good you are at propagating it, and now it is part art, part science, and there's definitely a method to it, and there's lots of variables. The potential these items may fruit their first year.
Yeah.
Because these are all from mature fruiting
But they'll be
plants.
really established on their third year.
They will be very established in their second year and
Second
absolutely
and third year. Third
established
year,
by
they
their
should
third
be
year.
totally producing,
Yeah,
especially
and
the
it's going to depend on
mulberries.
your growing
everything.
zone and how much
Everything.
warmth and how much sun they get,
Yep.
and there's a lot of different variables. But figs very often fruit their first year, and obviously, the fruit that it produces is going to be in a proportion to the size of the tree and all these different.
I mean,
things.
we have a mulberry tree in the back, and it's on its third year, and it's about that round. And one of the big benefits of having your chickens and things like that and your ducks in with your fruit trees, not permanently, you should rotate them out, like, a couple months in there, a couple months, take them out, let the pressure off your trees for a little bit, but they aerate everything and fertilize everything wonderfully. So we've seen very good success with that. So anyway, the food forest in the box will only be available for about a month or so.
Probably, yeah. We'll probably
So
sell out.
it's not like something that we can have all year long, because the fruit trees are only dormant for a couple months out of the year, and people have been loving it and buying it. So all the food forests in the box will be shipping out, Lord willing, on Tuesday, so tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's the update for anybody that's already ordered some.
Well, we're getting a really bad storm, so I would say Wednesday. But just say
true.
Wednesday.
Just in case something crazy happens. So anyway, but we'll be packaging them up, Lord willing, tomorrow, though. Hopefully, if it's not too crazy. So at 7:30, that's coming up here in about 13 minutes or so, we are going to be talking about why are young people dying in 2022, left and right. Everyone, not everyone, but I'm talking about like a lot of these athletes and very healthy people just turning over dead. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about that. And then we're going to be so we're going to start the stream off. We're actually going to be simultaneously streaming on YouTube and on Rumble. But then we're going to drop the feed on YouTube and then go over to Rumble, and then we can talk about the real things.
We won't be on YouTube that long.
No, not for long, just for a couple minutes or so. So we'll start off there. So everybody that wants to talk about that stuff, it'll be about the pinch and the jabs and everything like that. So we're going to be talking about that at 7:30. We're going to start it off on YouTube, but it's going to be streaming also on Rumble. So everybody will have to jump over to the Rumble deal. So anyway.
And we can finish up. We still have about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And we can.
And I think we're slightly getting out of the shadow ban, because every time we go live now, we get more and more people on. So thank y'all so much. Y'all are such a big blessing for just supporting us. Also, we're still getting over the plague right now, the flu. And anyway, what?
Yeah, Chris GSD thinks CBDC will be implemented next year. WEF just came out and said that CBDC would be implemented next year. So that's what they're saying. That's what they want. So let's see. What I encourage y'all to do with about CBDC is go to whoever. First off, I certainly hope that you're banking with a relatively local bank. I certainly hope that you're not banking with like whatever, Bank of America or HSBC or whatever.
Disgusting. Yeah.
I hope you're banking with a relatively local, smaller bank. We do. And what you need to do is you need to go to your bank, because central bank digital currency will absolutely slaughter the small local bank, and it's going to push them to go through so many all these different regulatory hoops, and all this, and including all this ESG stuff. It's going to force them out of business. What it's going to do, it's going to force them to consolidate with the big guys, guys that are too big to fail, that have all the different tarps and all these different funds just sitting in slush funds waiting to buy up all these little guys. So one thing you should be doing about CBDC is you should be going to your local relatively regional bank, right? That you should already be at. And if you're not already at a local relatively regional bank, you need to do that.
Yeah.
because why would you want to feed the big monster anyway? And why would you want all the
Yep.
shenanigans of a big bank and everything? And they don't offer you
Chain the
anything
beast.
that's worth worth all the shenanigans. And you need to talk to that local VP or whatever and say, what are y'all doing about central bank digital currency? What's your plans? How do you see it? How do you see it's going to play out and roll out? And how do you see yourself being involved in that? Because it is the absolute death knell of the local bank. I mean, and in our area, we're seeing more and more credit unions and more local banks pop up. And I want to know what they think they're going to do about this. This negatively impacts them substantially, and it would be nice to at least hear them say that they recognize that. And if they act like they don't even know what you're talking about, that's a bunch of baloney. Okay, that would be like, I can't think of a good analogy right now, but this has everything to do with everything that they're about, and it has everything to do with their continued existence and profitability. So they absolutely are aware of it. They know about it. It's just like ESG, the couple different regulatory advisors that we use at my job. They're already doing ESG training,
What?
and it's for business on a larger scale, it's probably a death knell. I'm just saying, unless you're super ultra mega politically correct and you're like the ultra mega politically correct dude and you're ready to do all the ultra mega politically correct things and say everything the way they want you to say it, and wear all the lapel pins and wave all the different banners and the flags and
Yeah.
be the useful idiot that you need to be. I mean, it's relatively the death knell, but I mean, there's advantages to all this too. You know what I mean? And with every adversity comes with it like the seed of an equal or greater benefit, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So don't, while there is a challenge with all these different things, it's not, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I wouldn't, I always like to look for the different silver linings and all these different things. It's just like, hopefully with this, central bank digital currency, hopefully we'll see local smaller banks and credit unions and different things. I really see this making these credit unions completely obsolete. So I'm curious of what these different credit union associations see what their take is on it. But I do encourage you to ask your local bank, what their thoughts are on it and what they plan on doing about it, and how do they plan on assimilating or actually countering it. And maybe that'll be part of the parallel economy. Like, hey, look, we're not jumping on that bus, and we're going to do this, and there is room for that. And while this super gigantic Panopticon, drag and drop, track and trace, and carbon wallet, and all this stuff, for one, that's incredibly expensive technology, and it's by design. That's why it eliminates the little guy. So that's the whole point, is to eliminate the little guy, and now the big dog's the only guy that has the infrastructure to pull this stuff off. So that's how the little guy either gets absorbed or he goes away. So that's my whole shtick on CBDC. It's coming when. It's just a matter of the right crisis not going to waste for implementation. And I still, as much as things still surprise me, I am surprised by. I'm like, man, how are they going to get this many people that just are going to that still refuse technology, which is kind of nice, and older people that refuse technology? How are they going to get them to comply? And they're not. Now, it doesn't mean that those people that don't comply are going to have different challenges, but that's the whole point. Hey, life is hard. Stop sacrificing your liberty for convenience, and life's going to get a little bit harder, and that's a good thing. It's like weight resistance training. The more load you put on the muscle and the harder it is, the greater gains you have. And this is just a principle of life, and life is hard, and you know, and that's all part of it. And it's not a bad thing; it's a good thing, and it creates growth, it creates strength, and you know, there's what's that? Good times create weak people. Strong men create good times, kind of thing. You know, it's the same kind of principles. And I realize some of that's platitudes, but there's a lot of truth in that stuff too. So, yeah, so that's all. We see these different economic indicators that aren't really too hot, and which is why we have been kind of prepping and planning and doing these different things. I've been expecting the shoe to drop since pre 2008, so it's kind of cool, and that's why you take it. You know, that's why it's good to prepare. If for times get tough, but even if they don't, you know, so you're taking advantage all along the way, and that's why it's a good thing to just live circumspectly, pay attention, be aware of what's going on, act accordingly, plan ahead. And then if the shoe doesn't drop and the wheels don't fall off, you're just that much further ahead, and you're in that much better of a position to share and to share your knowledge, share your wealth, share your time, be debt free, and you know, work on that. If you're not debt free, work on that, get out of debt, and then go to the next level. And that's what it's all about. But all right, y'all. So we're going to
be
jump off now,
jump off of this one and on to the next one.
and we'll be jumping back on in about 3 minutes.
Yep. So
Thanks for hanging out, y'all. We'll see you on the next video. And hey,
In
go sign up to our Rumble
3 minutes
right now.
So see y'all over there.
All right.